Hey, smart Christians, welcome back. I wanted to go ahead and answer this particular question from a brother who sent in, and really what it is a reminder from Marvelous Banco. Now, I don't know if this is a woman or a man. I shouldn't say that, so I don't know. But it says, Corey, I hope you're doing well. So I just wanted to ask you what the Bible means when it says the spirit of a lion, spirit of knowledge, and so forth. And oh, by the way, it's kind of a reminder because I said I would cover this. And so I want to go ahead and give an answer to that. But anyone else that wants to send a question, ask a question, send it to questions@smartchristians.org. I'll do my best to get to as many of those questions as possible. Once I see the questions, I will either send a reply by email or I may make a video and put the video on Patreon. It's free for you to join, so please go over there and join. The link is in the description as well. And then I'll answer the questions. Some of those questions will make their way over here to YouTube. But now, answering this question, what does it mean, the spirit of? And we see the spirit of in a lot of different ways, a lot of different times, such as the spirit of God. We can say someone, an armor of light or an angel of light. Sometimes, now, when we use this term of, it doesn't always mean the same thing. Sometimes, for example, the spirit of God is equated to who the spirit is. In other words, the spirit is God. Sometimes when we say put on or an angel of light, in other words, being disguised as light. And so the word of does not always connote or convey the same meaning. Let me give you some examples. When we see, though, in many cases, the spirit of something, for example, let's go to Exodus 23. You shall speak to all the skillful persons who I have endowed with the spirit of wisdom. Does that mean that God gave them a demon? And I shouldn't say a demon, but an angel, because sometimes we see this spirit of, and we think, well, that's a demon, that's an angel, that's some sort of being, some sort of actual spirit that is named wisdom or named evil or named deceiving. No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. In this case, this is just simply an attitude of that. So what I mean by that is just simply saying this is an attitude of. It can refer to someone acting in accordance with, behaving like, or as. And so when we say a spirit of wisdom, they have this. By the way, the word spirit is the Hebrew word here is ruach, or the Greek word pneuma. It means wind, breath, or spirit. Not always an actual entity or a being. It could be a demon. It could be an angel. In some cases, but in this case, it's not. Numbers 5:14. If a spirit of jealousy, in other words, just think of it as an attitude of jealousy, an attitude relating to jealousy going down. Now, Joshua, the son of Nun, was filled with the spirit of wisdom. In other words, he just gave him wisdom, gave him an attitude, gave him a being that's like, or that is characterized by him having wisdom. Elijah, now here's something that's interesting. Now, when the sons of the prophets who were at Jericho opposite him saw him, they said, the spirit of Elijah rests on Elijah. And what they're saying here is that the same sort of attitude, demeanor, how he's behaving, what's in him, what's filling him, is just like what was on Elijah. Are they saying that Elijah's spirit was on Elisha? No, it's not saying that. It's not that Elijah lives in him. So you can kind of see what I'm saying. These are what we would call kind of attributive or kind of adjectival, functioning like an adjective, expressing an attribute of a person. And so when we see the spirit of wisdom, that is kind of an adjective describing this person's mindset. In Isaiah 4:4, when the Lord washed away the filth of the daughters of Zion and purged bloodshed, it says, by the spirit of judgment and the spirit of burning. So this is now speaking of what he's doing to them. This is the attitude behind what the Lord is doing. It's not to say that the Lord was endowed with or having this particular spirit upon him. No, this is kind of the attitude of what he's doing. Isaiah 11:2, the spirit of the Lord, and we'll talk about the spirit of the Lord in a second, will rest on him. The spirit of wisdom and understanding, the spirit of counsel, and the spirit of strength, the spirit of knowledge. So clearly this is not a bunch of spirits. This is an attitude that is upon him. And where does it come from? It's the spirit of the Lord empowering this person to have this. That's why we say the spirit of the Lord. Now we'll deal with the spirit of the Lord in just a little bit, but There's also times where it actually is a demon or an angel or a specific angelic host or presence, some being, such as in 1 Kings 22:22. The Lord said to him, how? And he said, I will go out and be a deceiving spirit in the mouth of all his prophets. And so the Lord is going to put upon them this mindset, this attitude of deception. However, we see this as well, not just here when God is causing the people to be deceived and they end up telling these falsehoods, but we see this when God said, the Bible says that God sent out an evil spirit. Let's push this button again. I did this wrong. Judges 9:23. God sent an evil spirit between Abimelech and the men of Shechem. And so this evil spirit is probably signified by something demonic. This might be an actual evil spirit, or it just might be, it could be the same as an attitude that is them being evil or deceptive towards each other. Now this right here, though, in 1 Samuel 16:14 is clearly, well, I shouldn't say clearly either. It could be a demonic presence, or it still could be just the Lord breathing on this person, moving on this person to have this. Now, the Spirit of the Lord departed from Saul, and an evil spirit from the Lord terrorized him. The question is this the Lord touching him, or is this the Lord sending something demonic to kind of torture him, to kind of oppress him, to be upon Saul? I would probably say that's probably what it is, because the Lord's Spirit departed. The Lord doesn't have to depart him in order to confuse him or to traumatize him. So I think that this probably is, and is categorized as an evil spirit. The Hebrew word ruach ra, which is a spirit that is evil, because we see this, what's called this Hebrew construct. So I think this is an actual spirit that is wicked. And he just had this particular spirit to go upon Saul. Remember, even though we've got demons and they're wicked, and we've got a devil, he's still God's devil, meaning that they have to obey God. They understand and recognize that he is still in charge. Amen. Let's look at another passage. Also, let's go down to 1 Samuel 18:10. Same thing. Now, it came about on the next day that an evil spirit from God came mightily. And the question is this an actual spirit? This is kind of a little bit more difficult, because here we have Ruach Elohim. Well, is this the Spirit of God, or a Spirit of God, or this is God just impressing upon him, messing with this person's mind, this person's attitude? It could be that. It could be that. It's hard to tell because of the way it's written. And we've seen God do that with someone like a Nebuchadnezzar, who is clearly, God has touched his mind and caused him to think that he is a cow and he's out grazing. So it's hard to tell. However, though, this is probably, I would still probably say this is probably still a some sort of demonic entity, because this is exactly what happened previously. So the point that I'm trying to get to, though, and we'll look at some more scriptures, is that the spirit of isn't always a demon. It could be, sometimes it's just an attitude characterized by this. We use these adjectives to describe what sort of attitude, what sort of persona or personality the person would have. And God can endow that upon them. The Lord can supernaturally cause a person to become wiser, such as he did with Solomon. He can cause someone to be holier, someone to be, craftier, as he did so with these men as they created, or as they designed or did artwork and craft work for the ark. So God can do that upon someone. He can impress upon by his Spirit to cause you to feel or to do or to think a certain way. We see that often with the Holy Spirit. And we still see unclean spirits and things like that. We see this with, let's say, the spirit of divination. We see in Acts chapter 16, and it says, so we see this little slave girl that happened, who was going around, and a slave girl having a spirit of divination. And so she had this spirit of divination, having a pneuma, Puthona, which is this divination spirit. The spirit is characterized as or by this. Not that there's a spirit or a demon that is divination. This is characterizing what the spirit is doing in her. Not that the spirit that's its only job. The only job of this demon is to just do divination. No, this is just what the spirit is doing. And so you can kind of see the nuances of the word of. As a matter of fact, a pretty interesting book. This is Greek Grammar Beyond the Basic. And when we look in this book, let's go to what's called the genitive. In the genitive, there are several different uses of the genitive. I won't give you how they're used because we would be here forever. But here's how the genitive is used. When we see the genitive, we mean of. But it doesn't always mean that it belongs to. Like I say, this is my dog. Then I would say dog would be in the genitive. My children. Children would be in the genitive. And so you have what's called the descriptive genitive. You have the possessive genitive, genitive of relationship, partitive genitive, or the holative genitive, attributive genitive, attributed genitive, genitive of material, genitive of content, genitive of simple apposition, and then we also have the genitive of apposition, genitive of destination, in other words, direction of a person, predictive genitive, genitive of subordination, genitive of production, and genitive of product. And then you've got the ablative genitives. These were all the adjectival genitives. Then you've got the ablative genitives, genitive of separation, genitive of source, genitive of comparison. You all get the picture. There's a lot of uses of the genitive. Then we've got the verbal genitive. We have the subjective genitive, the objective genitive, and the plenary genitive. I'll leave it there, but we also have the adverbial genitive as well. And so the point is, we've got different ways that the genitive can be used. And so we want to be cautious of that. What determines how it's being used? Well, context determines that. For example, in Luke 4:33, do I have this pulled up? Let's go to Luke. I don't have Luke 4:33 pulled up. Let's go to Luke 4:33, and let's put this on the screen. And we can see that this particular genitive is a little bit different. I'm sorry, wrong one. But here's an example, though, going to it, though. In the synagogue, there was a man possessed by the spirit of an unclean demon. This is, and if you look right here, you see that this akathartu, which is in the genitive, you look below me, you'll see that it says a neuter singular genitive, and this is an adjective. So what does the adjective does? It describes what this demon, this spirit of demon that is, what is he? He is unclean. And so she's describing the qualities of this particular demon. But when we look at a word such as the spirit of the Lord, in this case, we see that this is part of who or what the actual entity is. In this case, the spirit is the Lord, but we'll still use that same word of. So when you say the spirit of something, sometimes it really means that that's who he is. The spirit of the Lord, meaning the spirit is the spirit that is the Lord. You can see something, a spirit of knowledge, or meaning that it's equating to or giving a quality or characteristics of knowledge. It could be a spirit of divination, or in this case, an unclean spirit, meaning that it's describing what kind of spirit it is. The reason why this is important is because more and more often, you are seeing people saying that this person has a spirit of XYZ, a spirit of Jezebel, a spirit of Python, a spirit of you name it. It's really getting out of hand, and they have no clue what they're talking about. And so there is no spirit that's called Python. There is no spirit that's called Jezebel. There is no spirit that's called Leviathan. We do have things that are kind of like someone else. So when the Bible talks about Jezebel, or she's like Jezebel, or is Jezebel, he's speaking about in Revelation that just like, probably in all likelihood, just like the Jezebel that we saw in the Old Testament, the same thing, the same characteristics, the same traits. So when you see the spirit of something in the Bible, oftentimes it's referring to the same traits, or exemplified by these traits, or characterized by these traits. So could a person have a spirit that's just like Jezebel? Sure. Doesn't mean that Jezebel resides in them or on them. There's a demon named Jezebel that's hanging out with them. No. Some of these other spirits of are just man-made, just made up. Spirit of Python, spirit of whatever. Those are man-made. They're not biblical. So be careful when you use these particular terms, spirit of. Now, it's proper to say that you have a spirit of pride. That can be used and used correctly. You have a spirit of humility. That could be used and used correctly. It's just simply saying that you have this wind in you. You have this personality in you, this attitude in you that's characterized, that's exemplified by pride or by humility or by love or by anger. So that's how we use that. I hope that helps. Anyway, thank you guys for listening in. I hope that this has been helpful for you. If you do, again, if you have any questions, other questions, please feel free to send them to me at questions@smartchristians.org. I'll do my very best to get them. I can't get to all of them. As always, I must always say that. And what I'll do is I will take those questions and try to cover them in a video just like this over on Patreon. Again, it's free to join. The link is in the description. In the meantime, guys, be blessed.